his office. He had me close the door. And at this time, I was traumatized from the industry because I had so many men, especially when I was at BET, they kept trying to flip me for me to advance into the industry and become an executive or be in certain circles and stuff. So by the time I was having this meeting with 50, I done been hit on by Diddy. I done been hit on by people, executives at BET and other people in the industry. It was just this weird undertone, you can be a megastar type of vibe. And when I had that meeting with 50, the first thing that came out of my mouth was like, yo, 50, man, I know a lot of people in the industry sell their souls. I'm just letting you know, man, I work with you, but I ain't with none of that. And he never worked with me after that. I don't know if he got offended by me even saying that to him. In hindsight, I don't know. I could have maybe offended him, but I should have explained to him why I said that, because I was already traumatized from a lot of successful people in the industry wanting to work with me, but wanting to bring those weird vibes to the table. So when, I'm super excited to work with 50, I just wanted to let him know, man, I don't think you those people, but I'm just letting you know I ain't with it. And I didn't want him to break my heart somewhere down the line, making a pass at me. But like I said, at that time, I was traumatized.
After 50 Cent dropped his Diddy documentary, he became something close to a hero figure in hip-hop. The man who went after the biggest name in the industry, who said what nobody else would say publicly, who built his whole reputation on never bending or folding for anyone. That image stuck. People genuinely believed 50 was the one guy in the game who could not be moved. Then Choke No Joke did an interview and said something that made people look at that image a little differently. For people who do not know Choke, he is a content creator who covers industry stories and has gone viral multiple times for making claims that later turned out to have some truth behind them. The most notable recent example, he reported that Jamie Foxx privately accused Diddy of being responsible for what happened to him during his health scare. Months later, Fox included that claim in a Netflix special, delivering it through comedy, but saying it nonetheless. Whether that was truth through humor or just a bit, Choke had reported it before Fox said it publicly. That track record matters when you are deciding how much weight to give what he says next. What Choke said in his CAM Component interview was this. He described reaching a point in his career where certain people in the industry made it clear that advancing further required more than just talent or a handshake deal. He said that while working at BET and moving in certain industry circles, he was repeatedly approached, tested, to see if he would compromise himself in exchange for access, opportunities, and advancement. He described it as a persistent pattern. Powerful people would offer him work, get close to him, and then at some point push to see if he would get down with what he called the program. He said it happened enough times that by the time he finally got a meeting with 50 Cent, he was carrying serious trauma from the whole experience. He did not know what to expect walking into that meeting. He had been burned enough times that he could not just assume 50 was offering a genuine business opportunity. So, before the conversation went any further, he looked at 50 and told him directly. He was willing to work, but he was not willing to compromise himself for any opportunity, no matter how big. He put that on the table up front. 50 Cent ended the meeting. He had the door closed, and he never worked with Choke after that. That is the moment, and the question it raises is one that Choke himself said he has never been able to answer with certainty. Option 1. 50 was offended. Think about it from that angle. Here is a man who has publicly dedicated years to exposing Diddy for allegedly approaching him with exactly that kind of energy. 50 has talked about it in interviews. He has been vocal about what he considered disrespectful. So if you walk into a meeting with 50 Cent and the first thing out of your mouth is a disclaimer about not being willing to do those things, you are essentially implying, even if not directly, that you think he might be one of those people. From that perspective, 50 ended the meeting because he was insulted by the insinuation. That is a completely reasonable explanation, and it makes sense given everything we know about how 50 moves and how seriously he takes his reputation. Option 2. Something else was in play. Choke did not say 50 was guilty of anything. He was clear about that, but he also could not shake the response. His point was simple. If 50 was genuinely offended by the implication, the natural reaction would have been to assure Choke that he had nothing to worry about, to push back, to clarify. Instead, 50 just ended it. That reaction, for someone as verbal and as combative as 50 Cent is known to be, struck Choke as unusual. He sat with both possibilities and said he honestly could not tell which one it was. What makes this more than just one man's story is how many other people have described similar experiences at similar levels of the industry. A former drill rapper named LFO talked publicly about reaching a point in his come-up where people expected him to compromise to cross over to the mainstream. He said he refused, and that is what caused him to disappear from the scene for years. He was direct about it. Once you reach a certain peak, they come for you, and not everyone is willing to do what it takes to stay there. Actor Rotimi described something similar happening to his wife in the entertainment business. He said she was presented with what he called the opportunity, top executives laying out what she would need to do to get to the next level. She declined. According to him, that refusal contributed directly to her stepping back from the industry, because once you say no to those people, the doors that were opening start closing. He said the liquor and the depression that followed were directly connected to navigating that environment. None of these people are providing courtroom evidence. They are not naming specific individuals in legally actionable ways. But the pattern is consistent enough across enough different voices, a music executive, a rapper, a Hollywood actor talking about his wife, that it is hard to dismiss as unrelated coincidence. The same story keeps surfacing from people who have no obvious reason to coordinate their accounts. That is the context that makes Choke's specific 50 Cent moment worth taking seriously as a question, even if it cannot be answered definitively. Here is what we do know about 50 and the culture around this specific issue. He has said publicly and repeatedly that Puff once approached him with exactly that kind of offer, inviting him on a shopping date, making clear there was more on the table than just a business conversation. 50 said he was disgusted and never forgave him for it. That is a significant part of why he spent years going after Puff before ever going after him publicly with the documentary. The shopping date story has been part of 50's narrative for a long time, so when Choke walks into a room and essentially warns him not to try that, and 50's response is to end the meeting rather than say anything, you can see why Choke was left with questions. Because the man who made his hatred of Puff partly about that exact kind of approach is the same man who could not simply say, "Bro, I'm not like that. You have nothing to worry about." Now, to be fair to 50, there is a real version of this where the explanation is simply pride. 50 Cent does not explain himself to anyone. He does not reassure people. He does not go out of his way to prove what he is not. If he read Choke's disclaimer as disrespect, as an accusation wrapped in polite language, walking away without saying anything further is entirely consistent with how he has always moved. That is not a guilty reaction. That is a man who does not tolerate what he considers slights. What is also worth noting is that the documentary did not come from nowhere in terms of timing. Many people observed that 50 became most vocal about Puff around the same period that Puff's alleged relationship with 50's baby mama entered public conversation. That timing raised questions about whether the documentary was purely principled or at least partially personal. If it was partially personal, that does not change the impact of what was exposed. But it does complicate the narrative of 50 as the purely principled one. The honest place to land on this is here. There are two reasonable explanations for why 50 ended that meeting, and no one outside that room can say which one is true. Choke himself said he does not know. What we can say is that the pattern Choke described, the testing, the approaching, the expectation of compromise as a condition of advancement, is something that enough credible voices have described that treating it as fiction requires more faith in the industry than most people are willing to extend. Whether 50 Cent is part of that pattern or simply a man who got offended by an insinuation is a question that this story raises without answering. What it does answer is why Choke has never been able to fully let go of that moment in the room when the door closed and the opportunity disappeared without a single word of explanation. Drop a comment. Do you think 50 ended the meeting because he was offended or because something else was going on?